Every day since the beginning of time, people have gone to work.
My girlfriend's cheating on me, and my cat shredded 3 rolls of toilet paper all over the house.
That's what makes the world go round.
How about this? Rapidly expanding, vibrant public records office seeks dynamic, innovative, creative risk taker. Dead letter office. Dead letters?
Undeliverables.
Then one day, Bartleby was hired to do a simple job.
Bartleby, your finger. Put your finger there.
I prefer not to.
Bartleby,
I would prefer not to.
why do you refuse?
I prefer to break his neck.
I think he's a little loony.
What, have you got an excuse from work? Or you got some kind of a deferment? You got a 4F?
I've given up working. I'd prefer not to. I would prefer not to say. I would prefer not to.
Will work ever be the same?
Are you ready to work now? I would prefer not to.
Bartleby.
I prefer not to.
Hello YouTube and YouTubettes. Today we're going to review the movie Bartleby. My name is Rob.
And I am Jonathan.
Jonathan, tell us a little bit about this movie.
Well, Bartleby came out in 2001, very limited release, small budget movie. It was directed by Jonathan Parker, written by Parker, along with Catherine DiNapoli, and starring David Paymer, Crispin Glover, Glenn Headley, Mari Chaikin, and Joe Piscopo. It's loosely based off of the short story Bartleby the Scrivener by Herman Melville. It's basically about a guy who starts out as the ideal worker for city employment, but then all of a sudden he just stops working. And whenever he's asked to do something, he says, "I prefer not to." And when he's asked why, he says, "I prefer not to say."
Now we're going to talk about some of the actors in the movie. Jonathan, who is your favorite actor?
My favorite actor will have to be Crispin Glover, who always seems to pick a lot of odd projects that are never in the mainstream, but he plays a very odd character, and I believe he fit that character very well. He's the title character, but not actually the main character. The movie's told from his boss's point of view, but I do believe it is his performance, Glover's performance, that really is the heart of the film.
My favorite actor was Crispin Glover, and he's probably my favorite actor of all time anywhere. So, why? I don't know.
You prefer not to say?
Yes, I prefer not to say. Jonathan, who is your least favorite?
My least favorite would have to be Mari Chaikin. He plays the character Ernest, also known as Ernie. I just didn't feel like he really fit. I mean, his character was quirky. Pretty much everyone in the movie is quirky. But there was something about it that made him seem like he was only going halfway with his performance. I can't quite put my finger on it, but whereas Crispin Glover went all the way with his weirdness, I felt like Mari Chaikin only went halfway. And he plays, the character Ernest is one of the employees of the company, by the way.
Yes, my favorite was also Ernest. Our least favorite, sorry, Mari Chaikin. And why, I don't know. Now we're going to discuss acting 1 to 10 in the movie. Jonathan?
I give the acting a 6.5. I believe some of it was done well. At the same time, I felt like some of the quirkiness of the characters and the way the actors portrayed them was almost like, it felt like it was being very self-consciously odd. I felt like that, again, I felt that fit very much with Crispin Glover's Bartleby, but I felt like in order to show how weird and out of place his character is, you really needed to make the other characters more normal. I felt like David Paymer was fairly natural as the boss, but I think ultimately I don't think the acting was exactly bad either, so that's why I gave it a 6.5.
I gave it a 9 out of 10. I think most of the main characters were great, and there were some off characters, and now we're going to discuss the directing and producing of the movie.
Over here, Rob.
Jonathan.
Over here. One thing I will say about the direction and the production of the movie, I give it a 6.5. I believe, like, in one way I do like it because basically it's trying to show you how mundane, how boring, and just how ugly it looks like working at this company. Basically all the employees are working for the city, and they're just in a horrible, colorless location. And one of the things Bartleby does, which is what Rob is doing right now, is just staring around, and he just stares at this vent. And I'm just like, man, this feels like such a terrible place to be. But at the same time, it made it a little bit just like, man, I don't really want to watch this movie, because it just transports me there, which is why I'm not giving it a very high rating, just because it just wasn't very pleasant to watch.
Give it a 7.
Why?
I prefer not to say. Visual effects. Jonathan?
Well, the visual effects I give a 6, and yeah, even though this movie just takes place in an office building, there actually are visual effects, and they are, I believe, purposefully not meant to look real, but just look bland. Basically, you have this building on a hill, and it looks like it's kind of been pasted there in the middle of real life. So that's why I didn't give it a super low grade, but again, I'm not going to give it a high one either. It's a 6 for me.
I gave it an 8.
Why?
I don't know. Prefer not to.
Why not?
Now we're going to talk about the writing in the movie, Jonathan.
The writing, I rated it fairly low. I gave it a 5, and only because since it is based on a short story, there's really only so much you can do with the characters. The boss tries to get Bartleby to do something, Bartleby doesn't do it, or Bartleby stares at the ceiling like Rob right now. And in the end, I don't feel like that can carry the weight of a regular hour-and-a-half to 2-hour movie. I felt like it could have made a better half-hour movie. So I felt like a lot of the writing to pan out the time just gave us a lot of dumb, funny office situations that didn't really fit in with the story in my view. So yeah, it gets a 5.
I give it an 8. Glenn Headley had good lines. The soundtrack, Jonathan.
The soundtrack I give a 4. Like my complaint with the acting, and this more so, I felt like it was very self-consciously weird. It has like the synth, like very high-pitched theremin kind of sound throughout it, and it just took me out of the movie. And for me, it just felt like it was saying, this movie is weird, this movie is weird. And I feel like, I felt like it just was too distracting. How about you, Rob?
I gave the soundtrack a 10 out of 10.
10 out of 10.
And I listen to this music on a loop all day because I prefer to. What it means. Jonathan, would you prefer to give your idea of what it means?
I do prefer to give my idea of what it means. Basically, this new worker becomes a nuisance to everyone around him, his boss and his coworkers, after originally working very hard, but then he just becomes a bump on a log. He doesn't do anything, and he doesn't even leave the office. He just stands in the same place all day. And basically, probably the most interesting thing about the meeting in the film, I think, is just like, how responsible are you for someone? Because basically the boss, even though this guy's doing all this, the boss at the same time feels sorry for this guy because he doesn't seem like mentally all there. But at the same time, is it really the boss's fault that this guy is doing this stuff? And so he's trying to figure out, okay, how should I be nice? How should I put my foot down? So it's basically, what do you do with someone like this? Should you feel sorry for them, or should you just hate their guts?
I think it is the opposite of the movie Yes Man starring Jim Carrey. Our average scores for Bartleby, the movie. Jonathan?
Thanks, Rob. My score would be 5.6. Ultimately, while I felt like there was some creativity involved in the movie, I can't really recommend it to anyone, and I wouldn't really watch it again.
I prefer weird movies. I gave it an 8.4 because I prefer a higher score. Thank you, and have a wonderful